Well, there are a lot of observances in this time of year. And this coming Wednesday, we celebrate Tu B'Av. Tu B'Av. In modern Israel, it is called Chag HaAhava, the Festival of Love, or as we know it, Valentine's Day. It's a holiday whose roots are actually much more ancient than Valentine's Day. They extend back at least 2 millennia, actually, maybe more. The Talmud relates that on this day, on Tu B'Av, the single women of Jerusalem would go out, all dressed in white, in order to find themselves a partner. It's kind of a ancient Sadie Hawkins Day, if you will. Oh, I'm glad some of you know who Sadie Hawkins Day is. That's good. Interestingly enough, Tu B'Av is always connected to this week's Parsha, on which Moses recounts to the Israelites that are standing, of course, on the border to the Promised Land, that loving moment at Sinai when God gave them Torah. That moment in our tradition is often depicted as a wedding, and the Torah as God and Israel's ketubah. Interestingly enough, a quick word search of Deuteronomy confirms this love connection. The Israelites standing on the border of the Promised Land are reminded 94 times to love. 94 times to love each other, to love their neighbor, to love the orphan, the widow, the stranger, and of course to love God. 94 times. Deuteronomy is very distinct in this focus. Genesis speaks of love 27 times, Exodus 17, Leviticus 14, Numbers only 6, but Deuteronomy 94 times. Love is mentioned here almost as many times as it is in Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, which of course is a book of love poetry. Deuteronomy's message is very clear. Love is an essential component in the building and maintenance of a promised land. And that is no less true today than it was thousands of years ago. So just how is it that our tradition would have us express our love to each other? Well, that answer can be found in many places in our tradition, many, many examples. But I want to start with one from the 27th chapter of Proverbs that I often refer to when I'm standing under the chuppah. And those words are, which you can almost see on the screen. I think Peter, they can probably see it up there. I see the screen. Okay. I'll tell you what it says. It says, as in water, a face is reflected to a face, so too the heart of one to another. As in water, a face is reflected to a face, so to the heart of one to another. Well, a student looking at this verse wondered, why water? Wouldn't a mirror be a lot easier to see one's face reflected back? To which her teacher replied, yes, but unlike a mirror, for a face to see its reflection in water, it has to lean in really close. So to the heart of one to another. To understand the heart of another, you have to lean in really close. What we learn here in this sentence from Proverbs is that love results from leaning in really close, taking the time, as one must when looking into water, to pay really close attention, in order that we might not see only the face, but also the heart and the soul of our beloved. From a distance, you can yearn for another. From a distance, you can have infatuation. You can think that you know someone, but until your hearts are truly leaning in close together, you really don't know each other. you can't really love another. Now, you may not know this, but each time you open your Siddur, you are taught this exact lesson from the book of Proverbs. Two prayers whose theme is love lean in very closely together. They're up there, in case you can see them. But in case you can't, I'll tell you where they are. On page 150 is where it starts in your prayer book. There are two prayers about love leaning in very closely to each other. On the one side, on page 150, or up there on the screen, is Ahava, a prayer that recognizes what we recognize in the parashah this Shabbat, God's great loving gift to us, Torah. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta. Everlasting love you have offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah. And leaning in from the other side, on page 154, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha. You shall love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your being. We learn here that love is not just an emotion, but it is a way of being in the world. We lean in close in order to lovingly give to our beloved something they need, to be for them something they may need us to be for them. And we learn from these prayers that there is a reciprocity to our actions. God's loving act was giving us Torah. Our loving gift back to God is expressed in actions through which we enhance the words and through which we enact the words of Torah that we have been given. When we rise up, when we lie down, when we teach them, when we place them on our heads and our arms and our doorposts. These two prayers are like faces reflection in water. They are leaning in close. We see similar words, in fact. I know you can't see them, but they're there, reflecting back to each other. In Ahavat Olam, we read, therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. And in Ve'ahavta, of course, when you lie down and when you rise up. And of course, each reflect the same core idea that is taught in this week's Torah portion as well. Loving is a covenantal commitment to each other. And central to both, the relationship between God and Israel, described in our Torah portion this week, as well in its graphic representation in the structure of our Siddur, is the fundamental importance of what stands right between them, the Shema. Listening, hearing each other. After all, listening, truly listening and hearing, is a compassionate act. And so it should not be surprising that we find it in our liturgy standing right between God and Israel's expression of love one for the other. Because listening is the essential act, the essential bonding, loving act. And so it is that on this Shabbat, Shabbat Nachamu, this Shabbat of compassion, we turn away from the darkness of Tisha B'Av, a moment rising out of our callous disregard for one another, and turn instead towards compassion that is rooted in being able to listen and to hear each other. By placing this portion that we read this Shabbat right here, our tradition is making an important point. The loving act of listening is the first step we must take in our journey towards a new year. It is the first step towards the creation of a promised land. And so as we celebrate Tu B'Av this week, Chag HaAhava, let us commit to doing more, to lean in close and to listen. v'chol levavcha, uv'chol nafshecha, uv'chol me'odecha, with our full hearts, our full souls, and all of our being, that we, like our ancient Israelite ancestors, might also become builders of a promised land. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.